Hi everyone, welcome to the Code House. Today I'm going to be introducing the Full Stack Web Development course. It is our first course and we're just going to be talking about a few things that you're going to need to know in order to start the course. But before I start the video, please subscribe if you haven't already done so, turn on notifications, and please like the video because we will be creating video content at least 3 times a week and you don't want to miss out. So please stay tuned and let's get started. First thing I'm going to cover is what web development is, and there's a quote here from openclassrooms.com. It says, "Web development is the building and maintenance of websites. It's the work that happens behind the scenes to make a website look great, work fast, and perform well with seamless user experience. Web developers do this by using a variety of coding languages." So breaking this down, you start off with the first part. It says web development is the building and maintenance of websites. So maintaining a website is very important too, not just building it. So you want to stay updated. You want to keep updating your website in order for it to be relevant to whatever's happening now. For example, COVID-19 would be COVID-19 information would be relevant now, not 20 years later. So you want to stay up to date and maintain your website as well as build it and make it look good from the starting itself. So second part says it's the work that happens behind the scenes to make a website look great, work fast, and perform well. So it is behind the scenes because not many people are going to look at your code except other developers and people who actually want to see your code. And if in web development, the only code that everyone can see is front end code that is your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If they turn on the inspector and they can see your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript respectively by using this inspector. However, not many people use that, so it is practically behind the scenes. And it's used to make a website look great, work fast, and perform well. Very important, these 3 points, because if your website doesn't look good, not many people are going to be able to understand what to do, and they may not like it because of the ugliness of the website. And working fast and performing well, you want to have good performance and quickly load data so that users can quickly get their data that they need and they can interact and view it. So the next thing it says, you want to create a seamless user experience, meaning something that the user thinks of as a really good flow. Because if you have a really good user experience, then the user will continue going back to your website and you'll get more customers because of that. So user experience is a really important factor that you need to consider while creating your website. Is it going to be seamless or is it going to be pretty rough for the user? Now, the last part says web developers do this by using a variety of coding languages. So when I talk about full stack web development, what full stack means is both front end and back end. We'll be discussing those later in this video, but full stack basically means you know how to do front end, you also know how to do back end. Full stack basically means those two. However, when someone says they use this stack to create their website, they use that stack to create their website, that means they're talking about the languages that they used in their back end in order to create their website. In the front end, it usually doesn't vary. It's usually HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because that's the most usual and conventional nowadays, and that's what we're going to be using too. So just keep in mind that a full stack means front end and back end, and a stack means whatever language someone is using in their back end in order to create their website. And just general information here, we're going to be using the MEN stack. Stands for MongoDB Express Node.js, and that's something you should know because if you want to look something up, a lot of people have great videos on things to do using the MEN stack, and you gain practice with those as well as in our channel. Next thing we're going to talk about is the web request response cycle, something essential that you should know in order to do the backend logic That's really crucial, and that's basically what the whole web development is about, the request and response cycle. So in the front end, you have the client and the web browser, because the client just interacts with the web pages, and they use the web browser to get to different addresses in your website that you have located on your web server. So what happens is the client sends a request along with the web browser, sends a request to the web server that you have anywhere in the world. And what you do is you do some logic, take some data from your database if you need to, and send it back from the web server to the web browser. And this is sent in the form of HTML, and the web browser displays that HTML as a web page in their tab or window that they're using. Now, the difference between front-end and back-end. Front-end web development is the practice of converting data to a graphical interface through the use of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what happens is you send back HTML, as I said before, in this response cycle from the backend and from the web server. So what happens is the browser takes that data and converts it into a graphical interface. So this right here is the browser's job. Your job is to use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript accordingly to create a really good web page. And this helps so that users can view and interact with that data. Users can also interact with the data instead of just viewing it, because sometimes that's going to be essential, such as in editing pages or creation pages for a blog. And in backend development refers to the server side of development, where you're primarily focused on how the site works. So you're going to be more involved with routing and a lot of data handling in the backend. And this type of web development usually consists of three parts: a server, an application, and a database. So first, we're going to also create a local server using Node.js and Express. Same thing for the application. The application is always going to be in Node and Express in this course. And a database, we're going to be using MongoDB along with Mongoose, and I'll be telling you what Mongoose is for. The front-end languages, we're going to be learning HTML5, CSS3, vanilla JavaScript, along with Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a library that helps in quickly styling HTML elements, and that makes it much faster. But it's not something that you need to know. However, it's really helpful to know that. And backend. So what Mongoose does is that we're going to be help us create and quickly organize data from our Mongoose database, and it's something that we're going to be learning from the start itself. And all of these languages and frameworks have their own websites, so you should go look them up. Node.js, Express.js, MongoDB, Mongoose, they all have their own documentation, so if you have any thing that you're stuck with, you can always look at their docs. Oops. And we have something called a templating language, which is EJS. EJS is basically HTML, except that it helps us in creating dynamic websites, so that every single page that we create doesn't need to be static, which you want the exact same structure, but you don't need exact same data being passed through. What you can do is in the backend do some logic and pass that data through to your EJS file, and that EJS file will display the HTML file accordingly. And you may also hear something called HBS. Handlebars, pretty much the same thing, has just a different syntax in how it embeds JavaScript. Last thing I'm going to be talking about is what a library is versus what a framework is, and what it says here from freecodecamp.org, really helpful, says that the technical difference between a framework and a library lies in a term called inversion of control. So when you use a library, you're in control and you're in charge of the flow of the application. You get to choose when to call the library, how to call the library, and where to call the library. However, when you use a framework, it's the exact opposite. It's the exact inverse of control when you use a framework, because the framework is in charge of the flow. So I have this small diagram, not a diagram as much as a picture, and it says that you call the library, however, the framework calls you. And frameworks usually are more strict because they always look for one particular thing, and you need to always do that. So you can't, you're not really flexible. It's not really flexible as much as libraries. However, frameworks may be more helpful than libraries in some cases because it may prevent some errors that may lead to some bad results. So you can't always say libraries are better than frameworks because they have more control, because you have more control over it. But it's good to know that we're going to be using libraries and frameworks. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, and please subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications and like the video. Comment down below if you have any doubts or questions, and I will see if I can make a video or answer your question right away. And as I said before, I will be giving the links in the description below to a lot of reference websites that can help you, and these include MDN, Stack Overflow, FreeCodeCamp. So look up these websites if you can. And they provide a lot of documentation and will help you as a future web developer. And bye for now.